Hello and welcome to Ransomware, Practical Steps to Minimize its Probability and Impact. My name is Cameron Salur, and I will be leading you today through a three-part series that discusses ransomware, its impact, and practical steps to avoid a ransomware event from occurring, but short of that, practical steps to take should a ransomware event occur to help minimize the impact of the attack, both on the organization and the organization's employees and customers. So we're going to divide this presentation into three parts. And part one, we're going to focus first on what is ransomware. I know that there's a lot that has been talked about ransomware in the news, and it's often a concern of many businesses, but many people don't necessarily know what ransomware is, how it works, and how it operates. And so before we can go into steps to respond to a ransomware attack and steps to try to prevent or minimize a ransomware event from occurring, it's very important to first focus on understanding what a ransomware event is and the types of ransomware events that are generally seen to occur and impact organizations. So once we talk about ransomware, we're going to talk about responding to a ransomware attack. That's going to be the main focus of part one. And as this presentation proceeds into parts 2 and parts 3, we're going to talk about other aspects of ransomware and other aspects of the incident response process. So let's start with the critical question, ransomware. What is it? Well, in its simplest way of looking at ransomware, it's really a form of malware. And malware, most of you should be very familiar with because malware is pretty pervasive on on the internet and on computers. Sometimes you may download something you shouldn't have downloaded, and your computer will be impacted with a virus. That's really what ransomware is in a sense. Now, the difference between ransomware and these other types of malware that you're probably more familiar with is that ransomware is used as a means to extort money from the victim. Just like you would consider in a kidnapping scenario where somebody takes an individual and holds that individual for ransom, and usually under general terms will say, hey, if you pay us a certain ransom amount, we will return the kidnapped individual. That is, generally speaking, the same sort of process by which ransomware attackers, which I like to term threat actors, that's the same process that these threat actors sort of employ. And so there's really two main types of ransomware that comes across. The first I've sort of called here classic ransomware, and this is sort of the more traditional ransomware event in which a threat actor installs ransomware on your network, and that ransomware encrypts your files and locks your access to those files. Now, what do I mean when I say encrypt? Now, sometimes some of you may be familiar with encryption from encrypting emails when you're trying to send a sensitive document. That encryption essentially scrambles the contents of the document that you're sending, and the recipient has a key that unlocks or unscrambles the contents of the email that you have sent. So the recipient is only the person that can see the contents of the email. So ransomware works in a similar aspect or a similar fashion, except in this instance, the key is only held by the threat actor. And the threat actor has that key, and you as the individual organization that has been impacted by the ransomware attack cannot access your files or the folders in which those files are contained without obtaining a key from the threat actor. Now, There's a second type of ransomware, which I've sort of dubbed here as exfiltration ransomware. You may have heard of this as double dipping ransomware or double extortion ransomware. And it works really in two phases. Now, the first phase of exfiltration ransomware is very similar to the classic ransomware approach, where in stage one, the threat actor has encrypted your files and therefore your access to your files. And you would therefore need a key, in theory, to be able to regain access to your files and folders.